All right, so for Monday's pod, we are tackling adding and subtracting rational numbers. So when we think about, let's start with adding rational numbers. When we add rational numbers, it's really important to look at the sign. So here we can see a negative sign plus a negative sign. So these two have the same sign. These two you can see have different signs. So we want to pay attention to, do they have the same sign or different signs? So let's talk about adding for a second. So when we add numbers with the same sign, we add them just like normal, and then we use that same sign. So add, then use same sign. So following those instructions, 14 plus 2 is 16. And then I would use the same sign. Well, these both have a negative in front of them, so my answer would also be negative. And that would be my answer, negative 16. Let's say that they have different signs. So if we have one that's a positive and one that's a negative, so let's do the example. Let's do negative 8 plus 2. Negative 8 plus 2. So we can see that this first one has a negative sign. The second one is a positive. When we have different signs, we actually subtract them. Then we use the sign of the greater number. Really the greater number with the biggest absolute value. So the number that's furthest from 0. So these two numbers, they have different signs. So I'm going to subtract them. 8 minus 2 is 6. And then I'm going to use the sign of the greater number, or the number with the greatest absolute value. Between 2 and negative 8. Negative 8 is further from 0, or it's the greater number. So my answer is going to be a negative. So this is adding when we have the same sign and different signs. Now, what about with subtraction? So when we subtract positive and negative numbers, we have to remember something really important. So this tip, put a box around it. Subtraction is the same, but equals the same as adding. Hopefully you're saying it with me, adding the opposite. So subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So here, if I were to rewrite this problem, which I would tell you that as your first step, to rewrite problem as addition. So I would change these subtraction problems to addition problems because subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So I would change this to negative 5 plus. Then I would ask myself, what's the opposite of 3? Well, that would be negative 3. And then I can use the properties of addition. Well, do these have the same sign or different signs? They have the same sign. So all I need to do is add them, then use the same sign. So 5 plus 3 is 8. And both these signs have a negative in front of them. So that means that my answer is going to be negative. The last problem I have here, negative 8 minus the negative 12, it looks a little scary because of all of these minus signs, but keep in mind our tip. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So your first step to rewrite the problem as addition, let's do that. So negative 8, not minus, plus, and then the opposite of negative 12 is positive 12. So these two are actually equal to each other. This is the same problem, just like these are equal to each other or the same problem. So then I'm going to follow step 2, which would be to look at my rules for addition. Sorry, I know it's inconvenient that I'm left-handed. I cover everything when I write it. You guys are hopefully used to that by now. So I have a -8 plus a +12. So it's clear that these are different signs. So I actually am going to subtract them, then use the sign of the greater number. So subtracting them, 12 minus 8 is 4. And the greater number is a positive number. So this is going to be a +4. That is going to be my answer. Okay. You'll have several problems to practice with.